stories. Did you know that if you keep talking about ghosts, the more active they are? Well, my friends and I found this out the hard way. As you are about to hear, I come from a background of religious believers, and I myself am one along with my roommates. We believe that there are, in fact, things on this earth we cannot explain, along with an afterlife. Now, a few years ago, I moved in with my roommate. Her name is Cassie. I moved in with Cassie because her cousin at the time moved out and back home to try and save money. I knew Cassie since I was a little girl, but we never got close enough until I moved in. A few nights after moving in, Cassie told me about the spirit that was attached to her cousin Abby. While I believe in things I could not explain, the concept of ghosts attaching themselves to someone seemed a bit far out there for me, but I respected her and listened to her anyway. She then proceeded to tell me about weird things that had happened to her and how the strange occurrences in the house stopped when Abby moved out. Fast forward a few months and Abby moves back into our little condo due to not getting along with the people she was living with. Well, when she moved back in, strange things started happening. Strange noises or lights would be on when we thought we had turned them off. Nothing too noticeable or malevolent, but odd at the same time. Now at that time, we each had a dog and also shared the space with our indoor cat, so most of the time we would just blame the weird noises on our animals. One night, Abby and I found ourselves alone on a cloudy fall night and had gotten on the subject of our past ghost encounters. We let the dogs outside for a while before the rain was supposed to roll in. Later on, Abby said her contacts started getting uncomfortable and that she needed to go upstairs to take them out. Now, our little condo had stairs right when you walked into the entryway. If you walked upstairs, it was like a big square. You would find my room to the right of you, and if you turned right again, there was a little bathroom that connected to my roommate's vanity area. Then her room. Turn right again, and you are back at the hallway that connects to the stairs. I know all of these details seem excessive, but it is important to know the layout of the house for the story to make sense. I followed Abby upstairs as we kept talking about our experiences. I was standing in my doorway, and she was standing in the room opposite of me fighting with her contacts. The wall to my left was an interior wall in my room that had 4 mirrors hanging in a decorative square. I can flat out say that there is no wind outside and all the TVs were off and the windows were all shut in our condo at the same time. She was just finishing a story when all of a sudden the wall to my left, with big enough force to knock off all the mirrors, croaked. Bang, 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 right next to me in the center of the mirrors. We both looked wide-eyed at each other and bolted down the stairs with my friend screaming, "I'm sorry, it's my fault," over and yelling, "It's the cat, oh my god, it's the goddamn cat, it can't be anything else." Me knowing full well that it wasn't the fucking cat, and right when we got downstairs the cat was asleep in the armchair. How it stayed asleep through all of that noise, I have no idea. We huddled on the couch for the rest of the night, us being both too paranoid to sleep. A few weeks later, Casey, Abby, and I were all talking about some weird experiences which were happening almost daily, and we got on the subject of where the ghost liked to reside most according to Abby. Abby told me that it would pace back and forth in my friend's vanity area, and especially liked my walk-in closet, which used to be in her old room. I later on told whatever it was that it was welcome, since Abby did verify that it was benign in nature. That doesn't mean it didn't have a temper if provoked. A few weeks later, a friend came over for the first time. The friend who I will mention now was a complete non-believer in the paranormal. She sometimes liked to think the unseen, so out of respect for whatever resided in our condo and my own sanity, I told her not to say anything stupid to taunt whatever resided in our home. We were alone at the time and didn't expect anyone home until late that evening, so we were alone. Later on, I somehow found myself on the subject of the weird activity in the house. I was sitting on my bed, which was tucked in the far right corner of my room, and my friend was standing at the foot of my bed, and about 2 feet behind her, I had a cabinet that was about 6 feet high. I had several decorative figurines on the top of it, one of which was a rather heavy angel figurine music box that was about 6 inches high and about 4 inches wide. The thing was not a light figurine by any means. The cabinet had a ridge engraved on the top of it, about 4 inches away from the edge of the cabinet, and the angel figurine had little legs on the bottom of it, making the following events extremely odd. Because it is impossible for the figurine to fall down, my friend, being a complete jackass, proceeded to say, "Kiss my ass, ghost," against my wishes, and well, right as she said this, my angel figurine flew off the top of the cabinet and hit her square in the left ass cheek. We both just looked at each other wide-eyed as she bent over to pick up the angel figurine. A little wooden bird I had on the cabinet flew off and hit her in the head just to make sure she got the point. We both got spooked and just chuckled, and the bruise she had on her ass cheek was proof enough to her that there really was something more out there. The girl really must have pissed off whatever it was, because right whenever I said goodbye and closed the front door, wham, all the cabinet doors in the kitchen slammed open and the light turned on. I nearly shit myself and slowly went to investigate what happened while apologizing for the actions of my dumbass friend. I quickly closed the doors and ran upstairs, locking myself in my room until my roommates got home. My parents heard these stories on almost a daily basis, grew extremely concerned about how consumed my friends and I were about these experiences. They advised us that it would be best to leave the ghost stories and videos alone, at least until things settled down. I told my roommates about this, and we all agreed to leave the subject alone. To see if the activity calmed down. For the remainder of our time in the condo and the time in the other house we moved into, we rarely ever discussed our past paranormal experiences. The activity ceased, and to this day I rarely discuss my past paranormal experiences. The advice of my parents gave us worked for us, and to this day I wonder, how did my parents find out about this trick themselves? Well, I think I can tell you. What your parents told you is something known as progressive entrapment. It's something that people who study occultism and magic know about. The more you get into magic and occultism, the more experiences you have, such as if someone converts from Christianity to Satanism, the more they study Satanism, the more they believe that demonic entities are trying to contact them. It's very easy knowledge to find on the internet. I was about the age of 13 when this story took place. I lived in an old house just on the outside of a large city and was surrounded by cornfields and forest. I'd lived there all of my life before this happened. It was a dreary summer night, which is normal for the place I live. But on this particular night, something was just off. I'd came home from soccer practice around 6 p.m., and my parents always had me in bed by 8. The night went on as usual. I ate dinner, played with my little sister, and did some weightlifting before bed. I got into bed around 7:45. I'm not sure exactly what time I fell asleep, but I didn't really have my usual episodes through the night. This was the first night I slept peacefully in years. I was suddenly awoken by some strange noise coming from the bathroom in my bedroom. Since I had to use the bathroom anyway, I decided to go check it out. I thought it might be a mouse or a bat since we live in the country and the house is old and has holes in the older walls. I went in the bathroom. I didn't see anything, so I proceeded on my way to pee. After peeing, I washed my hands and face. And while I was washing my hands and my face, I looked up at the large mirror that overhangs my sink. Since there was still water in my eyes, my vision is blurry, and I couldn't really see much, but I thought I saw something behind me. But I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I dried my face off, looked up in the mirror again, and right behind me there was a little girl clutching my body, almost as if she was hiding from something. Her ghostly outline scared me at first, but as I kept looking, I could tell that whatever was scaring her was coming from the basement. So I walked to my basement door and opened it slightly, at first because I was very scared of what might be behind it. That being said, I've lived in this house my entire life and have never been in the basement. My dad mentioned to me that it had 3 separate parts, all separated by small windows that you could barely fit through. So I walked down the basement steps and got down to the bottom of where the light switch was. I turned it on, and all seemed like it was okay. That's until I heard what sounded like crying from one of the other parts of the basement. In my mind, I was thinking, fuck this shit. But in my heart, I knew I had to see what it is. So I ventured through the part of the basement in the light that could not reach the other side where the other room was. It was pitch black. I still heard the crying, but since it was so dark I couldn't see anything. Something gave me the urge to go back to the far corner of the room because the way the moonlight reflected off of the floor, you could kind of see with the little light you had. I walked over to the corner and stared directly into the middle of the room. There in the middle of the room was a chair. It had shackles for the feet and what looked like to be some type of restraint for the arms or something like that. That's when I noticed that there was someone sitting in the chair. I walked closer, only to reveal that it was the same little girl that had been crying previously in the bathroom. She was also crying there, and had needles stuck in her arms, draining some type of fluid into her. All was quiet until she started screaming. It was so high-pitched, I thought it sounded like a siren or something out of that nature. She was saying words, but I couldn't make out anything she was saying until she spoke 5 menacing words that made my heart sink. She said,
"Get out, Daddy is coming."
Not even thinking twice, I sprinted up the basement stairs, tripping over my own feet and falling flat on my face. Once I reached the top, I got back up and ran to my parents' bedroom. I told them what happened. They went down there and checked out everything. I told them about the chair and the little girl that was screaming. They told me that there was no chair in the basement and that there had never been 3 parts of the basement. Me not believing them, I walked back down there, and the room that I saw the chair in was not there. There had only ever been 2 parts of the basement, my dad said. I told him what I saw and how I knew there had to have been some mistake. but I never did see that part of the basement again. I am now 18, and I decided to go do some research on the house to see if there's any history that could have caused that. I came across an article of a man who had been arrested in 1868 for doing lab experiments on all of his children after the man was arrested. The police found all 12 skeletons of his children stuffed behind the basement stairs, under debris and concrete. Now that I had finally moved out of that house, and that I finally have an answer as to what I saw that night, I am finally at peace. But those words still hang over me to this day. So ever since I was little, I'd probably say around 5 or 6, I always used to experience sleep paralysis in my old house. I would describe my experience as somewhat normal, but one thing always used to happen that I've never heard of. Obviously, the typical dark figure at the end of my bed and heavy feeling on my chest was there, but I would always feel as though someone was punching my back really aggressively and would get the image of what I describe as a bear. This would happen almost every night until I was 11, and I would just assume this was normal. As a little side story, the night of my great-grandmother's funeral when I was like 9 or 10, I saw her stand near my window smiling at me. I remember trying to talk to her, asking why she was there because she was meant to be dead, obviously not understanding that if what I was seeing was real, she would be a ghost. I got out of my bed and went to talk to her, and her face dropped. Her eyes were wide, and she looked terrified. Out of nowhere, her face lost the appearance of skin and turned into basically just the skull, and screamed, "Get out!" Looking back now, I don't believe that was my great-grandmother's spirit. I believe it was the man I'm going to tell you about. Around 6 months ago, my mom, brother, and I were talking before we went to bed about ghosts and the paranormal. As we had just finished rewatching Paranormal Activity, I told her about having sleep paralysis in my bedroom every night, and I remember her just saying, "You're joking, right?" And I was like, no. Why would I be joking? She then went to tell me about how when we were moving out of the house in 2014 and we were packing our belongings, she went into the crawl space in her attic bedroom and found these old newspapers and ownership records from a man who owned the house in the 1900s who died. We don't know if he died in the house or if he died elsewhere, but we believe he was the spirit that I was experiencing. The reason we came to this conclusion was because my mom's bedroom wasn't a bedroom at the time. Her friend who she bought the house from had just converted it, and mine and my brother's bedroom was one big bedroom. I believe he was angry that we were there because he still saw it as his house, although I could be wrong. Anyway, after we moved into our current house, I didn't experience anything for a good few years. Jump forward to 2017, my best friend at the time was over, and we were baking for a bake sale. We were doing for school. She had gone to the toilet, but when she came back to the kitchen, she told me she had seen an old man at the bottom of my stairs and described him. He had a blue checked, buttoned-up shirt tucked into formal black trousers. He was bald, wore rectangular framed glasses, had a sort of round belly. I just assumed she was trying to freak me out, as I had recently told her about my sleep paralysis in the old house. Going another perhaps a month into the future, another close friend of mine was at my house. It's important to note that my best friend had not ever met this other friend of mine, and again she had gone to the toilet and said she saw a man at the bottom of the stairs. I wish I was joking when I say she described him the exact same, with the exception of their wording. The summer of that same year, my best friend of 11 years at the time, who actually moved into my old house, traveled 2 hours to stay at my house for a whole week. One night, she shook me awake saying, "Stop, you are freaking me out." When I was awake, I was very confused, asking what she meant. She told me she was saying, "No, you're not supposed to be here. I left like you wanted." Jump forward to 2019 and present day. I've had some unexplainable experiences that could be put down to coincidence, but I thought I'd just add them here. First of all, I used to have this desk chair in my room that my cat loves to sleep on. She literally claimed that as her spot, and one day she sat on the opposite end of my room and just hissed and hissed at the chair. Me being like, "There's nothing there, don't worry." I picked her up and tried to put her on the chair and settled her, but she literally clinged to my shoulder and wouldn't stop meowing until I put her down and opened my door for her. Another thing is, a couple of months ago I experienced what I think was sleep paralysis again. I was face down in my pillow and couldn't move when I woke up and felt like I was actually going to die. I literally couldn't breathe. It freaked me out so much that I make it a point to lay on my side rather than my stomach. The last thing that comes to mind was literally last week. My brother was at work and left his bedroom door open. I don't like my cat going in there as he gets himself stuck under his bed, so I shut his door. And I went downstairs and sat in the living room with my mom for a good half an hour. When I came back upstairs, his door was wide open, but it kept swinging back and forth. Jokingly, I said, "Ha ha, very funny, Jeremy. Please shut the door." And I kid you not, the door slammed shut.